So here's something interesting. The glamorous world of South Africa's social media influencing just got a reality check. You see, the South African Revenue Service, SARS, has officially now set its sights on content creators, people like myself. They're making it clear that the days of treating freebies, sponsored trips, and brand collaborations as tax-free perks, those days are now over. With over 500 billion rand in unpaid taxes at stake across the economy, influencers and creators have found themselves squarely in the crosshairs of the country's most determined and efficient tax collector. Okay, what we first need to understand is that social media has fundamentally transformed how we consume content and how businesses reach their customers. Nearly 78% of the global population now uses some form of social media, and South Africa is no exception to this. Local influencers, people like Sayan Bougie, Bonang Mateba, Mihlali Ndamase, Somizi, and Black Coffee, these people have started to command audiences well into the millions, wielding influence that traditional advertising agencies could only dream of. Now, this shift hasn't gone unnoticed by brands. Marketing budgets that once flowed to established advertising houses are now increasingly being redirected towards individuals with sizable social media followings. Companies and brands are now contracting these social media personalities to lend their image on digital platforms, fundamentally changing the advertising landscape in South Africa. But remember, where money flows, tax obligations, those things will follow. In August of 2024, SARS expanded its taxpayer segmentation model to better serve different types of taxpayers. The traditional categories, which included things like standard taxpayers and large, small businesses, these things had to change or evolve. 3 new segments were added: national and provincial governments, social influencers, and also those who do gigs, the gig economy. Now, this isn't just administrative housekeeping. SARS describes social influencers as modern entrepreneurs, people who operate as sole proprietors or independent contractors. These are your technologically savvy individuals who have identified a niche in the market, a niche that they can now provide a generalized offering that leverages their social media followings. I'm an influencer. Now, in other words, SARS now officially recognizes influencing and content creation as a legitimate business activity, and this means that there are now tax obligations that come with that. The numbers tell a rather sobering story in South Africa. According to the South African Institute of Taxation, SARS is eyeing more than 500 billion rand, half a trillion, in unpaid taxes across the entire economy. Now, unfortunately, online creators and influencers have been flagged as one of the key areas where compliance has rather lagged. Experts believe that SARS could collect even more from influencers once the full scope of undeclared income starts to become clearer. To understand why SARS is so focused on this creator and influencer sector, it's crucial to grasp just how much money is flowing through South Africa's influencer economy. The earning potential is substantial, and it varies dramatically across different platforms and even across different follower counts. South Africa's top YouTuber, Ryan HD or Ryan Lombard, reportedly earns a minimum of 988,000 Rand per month and 11.8 million Rand annually from his 9.25 million subscribers and over 6 billion views. Magic creator Vian follows with 684,000 Rand every single month and up to 8.2 million Rand annually from his 6 million subscribers. Even someone like fitness influencer Noel Dazel with 4.85 million subscribers, he apparently pulls in an estimated 562,000 Rand per month and 6.7 million Rand annually. Now, according to the South African Influencer Report from 2024, Instagram rates follow a clear hierarchy. Celebrity influencers with over 1 million followers command roughly around 17,000 Rand for static posts, 34,000 Rand for reels, and 10,000 Rand for stories. When you look at macro influencers, these are people between 500,000 and 1 million followers. They earn around 9,600 Rand for posts, 18,000 Rand for reels, and around 6,000 Rand for stories. Even nano influencers, these are people with 5 to 10,000 followers. They can earn 2,000 Rand per static post, 3,000 Rand for reels, and around 1,200 Rand for stories. Even TikTok creators, these people are also now starting to significantly generate a lot of income. They do this through things like sponsored content, and with high-performing creators, some of these people are earning 10,000 Rand or more for a single branded post. Mega influencers, these are people with over 1 million followers on TikTok. They often earn around 180,000 Rand per post, plus additional income from things like live streams, brand ambassadorships, and cross-platform opportunities. All of this clearly shows that there's a lot of money swimming around social media. Okay, I want us to work out an example. Consider a mid-level influencer who's posting sponsored content just twice a week across their platforms. At a conservative estimate rate of 6,000 Rand per Instagram post and 15,000 Rand per TikTok collaboration, that's around 168,000 Rand every single month, or around 2 million Rand annually. Add in product gifting valued at 20,000 Rand a month, and the annual taxable income starts to approach 2.25 million Rand. Multiply this across thousands of active South African influencers and creators, and the potential tax revenue becomes quite substantial. So substantial that SARS just can't let it slide. This massive figure reflects a broader challenge that tax authorities worldwide are starting to grapple with. The digitization of the economy has created new forms of income that doesn't fit neatly into the traditional tax frameworks. Revenue authorities in multiple countries have already started monitoring social media sites to actually identify who potentially is non-compliant in the influencer economy. And South Africa is following this global trend. It's not just our SARS guys deciding that they want to be haters. As with all tax matters, a lot of things start to become very complicated. And for influencers, this has become a reality. SARS has made it crystal clear that no matter how social influencers and creators are remunerated, whether this is products, services, or travel trade exchanges, all of these are now deemed as income and they must be taxed accordingly. Let's break down a real example to see how this would work. If a restaurant offers an influencer an 800 Rand dinner in exchange for a social media post, that 800 Rand is actually considered taxable income. I know, right? If a brand sends a luxury hamper to an influencer who then promotes their products, it's also taxable income. It's actually not a gift. If an influencer receives free tickets to a play's opening night without any contractual obligation, that might be different, but the lines are often very blurry. The key principle is the open market value. If you as an influencer receive something worth 20,000 Rand, whether it's a trip, a product, or a service, you need to declare 20,000 Rand in taxable income. This applies to brand collaborations, sponsored content, affiliate marketing, endorsement deals, paid appearances, and even those highly coveted unboxing videos where influencers get to keep the products that they review. You can kind of see why this is tricky. The SARS Commissioner, Edward Kieswetter, has emphasized that the revenue services approach is to build on voluntary compliance. SARS believes that taxpayers are honest when they are clear and certain of their obligations. When they are, they start to comply voluntarily. The assumption is that social influencers will declare honestly when they're adequately educated. And if you're a creator who's watching this, you've taken the first step to get yourself educated. To support this, SARS has prepared educational products and even videos specifically for influencers. The agency then plans to provide seminars, webinars, and rulings to help this segment of people understand their tax obligations a bit better. It's almost like a carrot and a stick type of approach, but the stick is very real in this one if you don't pay your tax. The challenge is rather significant. Most of these influencers, most of the creators, they don't actually have the information or the education. They don't have any tax knowledge. Many people who are content creators, they operate as sole proprietors or micro entrepreneurs without actually fully understanding what their tax obligations actually are. Look, SARS is always going to be watching. I don't want you to think that SARS is operating blindly here. This is the digital space. The revenue service, they've got third-party data providers, people who can track exactly who received what and when. These third parties are SARS agents by law, and they have to legally provide this information. It's a legal duty. While SARS hasn't specified exactly which third-party data sources it uses for tracking influencer payments, the agency has a well-established system for traditional employees. This includes data from employers, medical aid schemes, banks, retirement funds, and even other institutions. The technology exists to extend this monitoring to the influencer economy, and they can do this quite easily. Perhaps more importantly, SARS does conduct lifestyle audits. If your growth in assets doesn't match your declared income and even your lifestyle, alarm bells start to ring. Because think about it, if you're posting about luxury cars, those overseas trips in first class, things like designer fashion, while you're declaring minimal income, you have to start to expect scrutiny. As one tax expert puts it, if your lifestyle doesn't match your income and your lifestyle, this triggers alarm bells at SARS HQ. For influencers looking to get their tax affairs in order, the requirements are actually quite clear, but they're comprehensive. Each creator needs to register properly. Most influencers should register as provisional taxpayers since they're earning income from business activities. This means that they'll need to estimate their annual income and pay the tax upfront with adjustments made throughout the year. Influencers and creators need to start filing twice annually. Unlike regular employees who file once a year, provisional taxpayers must file returns every 6 months, regardless of whether they fall below the normal tax threshold. Also, you've got to keep meticulous records as an influencer. Every contract, invoice, receipt, and bank statement, these need to be preserved. SARS doesn't accept estimates. Influencers must be able to substantiate their declared income and the deductions with proper documentation. Then you've got to start to value those non-cash payments. This is often the trickiest part. Influencers must keep records of all non-cash payments and estimate their fair market value. That sponsored trip to Cape Town, the market value of those flights, the accommodation, and even the experiences, all of these things form part of taxable income. Then you've got to consider the VAT obligations. If your annual earnings exceed 1 million Rand, VAT registration becomes mandatory. This means that charging VAT on invoices, but also claiming input VAT on legitimate business expenses. Then you've got to think about how to claim for legitimate deductions. The flip side of being taxed as a business is that business expenses become deductible. Camera equipment, editing software, internet costs, mobile contracts, professional fees, and travel to events. All of this can be potentially deducted from your business operations. So what does this all mean? Well, the message from SARS is clear and pretty unambiguous. Social media influencing and content creation is no longer a tax-free hobby zone, but it's now a legitimate business sector, and this means that full tax obligations apply. The era of treating sponsored content, free products, and promotional trips as untaxable perks is definitely over. For influencers, this now represents both a challenge and even an opportunity. The challenge lies in navigating these new, complex tax obligations while maintaining the creative authenticity that makes their content so valuable. The opportunity for content creators now lies in legitimizing the industry and operating on a more professional and highly sustainable basis. This will make it easier for you to start to get things like bank loans for cars and houses, etc. SARS has signaled its willingness to work collaboratively with the influencer community, emphasizing that education will be pushed over immediate enforcement. There's still time to find each other. However, the underlying message is unmistakable. Voluntary compliance is expected, and the tools for enforcement, those are already in place. The South African influencer and creator economy is now entering a rather new and I would call it mature phase in its evolution. Those who adapt quickly to the new tax reality will likely find themselves better positioned for long-term success. Those who don't may start to discover that the cost of non-compliance far exceeds any tax savings that they would have hoped to achieve. SARS has clearly stated that they're more than willing to assist honest taxpayers and in this way creators and influencers to comply with their tax obligations. A lot of influencers are now actually starting to be reminded that they're also social citizens and they need to uphold their end of the bargain. The bargain is clear though. legitimacy and support in exchange for compliance and contribution to the health of the country's fiscal position. Thank you for watching this video up until this point. Hopefully it was just as interesting for you to watch as it was for us to make for you. Check out one of these other videos and hopefully they'll be just as interesting as this one. Cheers.